Governor, what is the purpose and plans for this type of coordination to reopen the Northeast eventually?
Well, we've been working with our surrounding states since this first started because the virus is different. There are no jurisdictional lines. State lines don't matter. All these actions that you take, Ari, you can't do it as an island, right? If I put certain policies in place in New York and you don't like them, you can drive across the bridge and you go to New Jersey, you can go to Connecticut, et cetera. So doing it as a regional governance model made sense. And we're turning now to looking at this reopening question. We're not out of the woods on the public health issue by any stretch of the imagination, but you're going to see people start talking to this, turning to the reopening. And how does that work? And what we wanted to say is, on a regional level, well, we want to reopen as much as the next person, maybe more. If you've been living through this as a governor, believe me, second to healthcare workers and essential workers, you want this resolved. But you need a public health strategy that is consistent with a reactivation economic agenda. You have to do both. It has to be on a regional level. And that's what we're coming up with. What's the plan to reactivate? And do it carefully, because if you do it wrong, you can see that infection rate go through the roof.
Yeah. Let me read to you something the president was just saying. He posted a couple of items to Twitter saying some in the media are saying governors have the decision to open up the states, not the president. And he said it's the decision of the president, and for many good reasons. Then he went on to sort of caveat it, Governor, as you probably know, and said he's still working closely with governors and that will continue, but it's a decision by him. Number one, is that accurate or not in your view? And number two, do you see your decision making as in coordination with his or not?
Well, a couple of things. First, everyone has been playing nice, right? And it's important for New York, for me to do my job during this crisis. I need the federal government to do its job, Ari. I needed thousands of beds. I needed equipment. That relationship is very important, the state-federal relationship. And this is no time to play politics. No one has had a more fractious relationship. No governor has had a more fractious relationship with this president than I have. But not now, okay? And we've been working cooperatively. As far as the president's point, first, it's going to raise legal issues if it becomes confrontational and hostile. Depending on how you frame it, legally, there could be an argument that it's a state's right versus federal responsibility. But let's put that aside for a second. What I would say is you want to now say the federal government is in charge, which, by the way, is a shift because the federal government didn't close down the economy, right? They left it to the states. It was state by state. It was a whole hodgepodge. The governors had to close the economy, which was not politically easy to do. But now the federal government says it can open it. Well, then why didn't you close it if you can open it? But put that aside for a second. What does that mean, that the federal government is now going to open the economy?
Let me pause on that. You make what would sound like an important point. You are, in a perhaps diplomatic way, calling out the president for trying to sound like he's in charge of reopening when you're saying under the president, they didn't take the hard call and step up first on the closing.
Well, they didn't. They said the opposite. They said it's a state's decision, right? And then that was followed up by FEMA doesn't do the purchasing. That's up to the states. And there was tremendous delegation to the states. So that was model one. But put that aside. Let's say he wants to go to model two. And model two is I'm the president. This is a federal emergency declaration. I'm in charge. I'm going to put the plan in place. OK, here's the responsibility. Tell me how it works. What does that mean? Are you going to take care of all the testing? Because states can't do testing to anywhere near the scale of this operation. Tell me what to do about New York City versus Albany versus Buffalo. Tell me how to do New York versus Texas. Is it a percentage of population that is infected? How do you do it? And you want to take responsibility, federal government? Here's the bag, right? Now, I did this on the state side. I said to my local governments, school districts, cities, towns, it's a state issue, and the state will determine the policy. and I'm asserting a state emergency declaration, and the state's in charge. But then you have to do it. So, Ari, it's not just saying it. What is your plan to actually do it, to take federal responsibility? And depending on the intelligence of that plan, I think it would then beg the other question, which is, do they have the legal jurisdiction to do it? Which, if they had a smart plan, I think you'd see governors say, God bless you.
Right. You're ready and willing to work with anything that you think is in the public interest of your state and all the hard times that New Yorkers are going through. When we turn to this whole issue around medical expertise, what is knowable, what governments were on notice for, as you know, the president clashing with Dr. Fauci. Do you believe that it would compromise the national and New York response if Dr. Fauci would be removed, as the president has openly talked about on Twitter, or do you see that as outside of your lane?
Oh, look, I think Dr. Fauci is a national treasure right now. You look at what Americans say and who they're listening to and who they have confidence in. Dr. Fauci is at the top of the list. And anyone who knows his pedigree and his history and his accomplishments, he's at the top of the list, of anyone's list, by the way. So he has been phenomenal as a calm, straightforward, factual voice in all of this. I know he's been very helpful to New York. I've called him a number of times. He's been very kind. I call him in the morning. I call him late at night to give me guidance on what to do. But he's an extraordinary talent, and he's credible, Ari.
Well, I'm curious, Governor.
Fauci,
I'm curious. Let me ask you, when you say you've spoken to him, I mean, we've all taken a lot in just seeing him speak in public. I wonder if you could just share with us, what have you learned from him, or what do you think is important to model after him in your conversations with him during this tough crisis?
Well, he is a reasonable voice, but a voice based on science and data, and doesn't operate only in the abstract. You know, you can talk to scientists and doctors who give you advice, but it's devoid of the reality of the situation, right? Where I have to actually get 19 million people to do what I'm asking them to do. So Dr. Fauci, yes, he's a voice of science and learned and experienced, but he also understands the governmental process and that we have to get people to actually adhere to these policies. So that realism is very important. And I literally go through the numbers with him because I study the data every night. I'm not a public health official. I don't really know what I'm looking at. And I then talk to Dr. Fauci and I'll say, here are our numbers. Here's the hospitalization rate. Here's the death rate. What do you think is happening? And he's been an extraordinary sounding board for me personally.
Final question, sir. There's been a lot of talk about what the new normal may look like. I'm curious, as you just mentioned, the challenge of, as you put it, trying to get 19 million people to do something in a world where people don't agree on everything. What is, in your view, the most important thing that your constituents, New Yorkers, and people in other similarly situated areas Northeast need to be ready to do even when we return to life? Is it having more masks? Is it maintaining social distancing even when we're back to work? Or is it something else on your mind that we all need to culturally get ready to shift into for our safety?
Yeah, you know, Ari, frankly, I don't even know when we get to the new normal, right? When is this, quote unquote, over? I don't know that it's really over until we have a vaccine, and that's when people can really exhale. But that's 12 to 18 months. I'm worried about the next phase, which is this reopening of the economy phase. And people have to be realistic, and we have to speak with one voice. It can't be what we went through at the beginning of this, where people said it's real, it's not real, dismiss it, don't dismiss it. All those mixed messages made it very hard for me as a governor or any governor to then tell people, here's the policy, trust me, because they were getting mixed information. On this reopening, we can't make false promises. This is not a light switch. Everything is not going back to usual tomorrow or in 7 days or 14 days. And don't offer false expectations, because that's going to make everything harder. Right. So let's be honest and factual and with one voice.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.